So here's another practice question, number 15. How could the introduction of non-native species of plant affect an ecosystem in North Carolina? So it could take over the habitats of the native plant species. An example of that is kudzu. Kudzu is a non-native invasive species, and it has taken over a lot of areas, and you can see it on basically from the sides of the roads just about anywhere in North Carolina. Number 35, what is biodiversity? Bio means life, so biodiversity is referring to just the variety of living things that you might find in a particular ecosystem. Why is biodiversity important? Because it ensures that there's sustainability, that the ecosystem can recover quickly, and ensures that there are things in the habitat that are going to be able to survive. Which area of the world has the most biodiversity is going to be the Amazon rainforest. 13, why is it important to conserve the biodiversity of Earth? And that's because biodiversity is going to increase the stability of ecosystems during environmental changes. So it is going to increase the ability for things in that ecosystem to survive when there are changes, particularly when there's droughts, when there's, with global warming, for example, when there's big changes in the ecosystem environmentally, the things that can survive, that are genetically diverse enough to survive or have the variations that will allow it to survive, are going to be the things that survive in that habitat. 36, what does mitigate mean? So mitigate just means to lessen the impact of our actions, basically, make the impact less severe. So how can we mitigate the human impact? So humans impact the environment negatively in a lot of the things that we do. So we should be conscientious of our actions, basically. We need to take steps to reduce our ecological footprint. We need to realize that actions have consequences. We should recycle. We need to reduce the amount of plastics that we use. And we need to limit our dependency on fossil fuels. We need to examine different renewable sources. We need to encourage our leaders and communities and politicians to do the same, to look out for the welfare of future generations of the earth. And we need to educate. We need to educate others, educate our families. It took me 37 years to get my mom to start recycling, but you know what? I asked her a whole bunch of times, I pestered her about it, and then finally, 37 years later, she did. So here is a soil texture triangle. You may see one of these on your EOG, so I wanted to make sure that you understood how to read this. So on this soil texture triangle, we have percent of clay, we have percent of silt, and we have percent of sand. We have an arrow. So this arrow is pointed horizontal for percent clay. For percent silt, it's downward at an angle. And percent sand, it is pointing upward at an angle. So the angle that the arrow is pointing is showing you which line to be looking at on this triangle, because there's a bunch of lines. So for example, if I was looking at something that was, let's say 50% of clay, then I'm going to look at this line. And if I am looking at 10% silt, well, this is silt, and I need to be looking downward, but I need 10, so I'm going to look at this line. So that line intersects with the 50 right here. And if I am looking at the percent sand of 30, then my percent sand is going to be going upward. So here's 30, so it goes up like this. So wherever that point intersects, then that is going to be where you have that particular type of material. So we're looking at clay here. So that is something you may end up having to read. So this is a release item that shows you an example of that. This is a diagram of a soil texture triangle. Farmers can use this chart to identify the type of soil found on their land and determine the likelihood of erosion and other important factors. So this soil texture triangle is helpful with agricultural, especially with planting crops and examining the soil to see how fertile it is or what actions you may need to take in order to make it more suitable for your crops. What type of soil does a farmer have if the soil contains 40% sand, 40% silt, 20% clay? So let's take a look at our soil texture triangle and find out what the answer is. So we're going to be looking at 40% sand first. So this is our percent sand. We're looking at the upward to the left, slanting to the left line. So 40 is right here. Then we're going to be looking at 40% silt. Here's our percent silt, and there's 40. So there's our line. And then 20% clay. So our clay is right here. We're going straight across. There's 20. So our lines are going to be intersecting right here. And that is in the area for loam. So loam is our answer. And that's all there is to reading a soil texture triangle. Remember the arrows and find where it intersects.